Do. Live, live, live. All right. Well, since I'm live and that means there's nobody here yet, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank any of you who are actually seeing this because that means you're re-watching it later. So, yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to check out what is no longer live. And thank you to whoever has just joined us tonight with the discussion of is science for sale? And or the discussion of a wonderful wide world of insects and Dr. Jonathan Lundgren. So I found, well, some very interesting things in what I discovered listening to Dr. Lundgren, well, over the past week and over the past few weeks, because I've been in this for a while. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. And I'll be very curious to discuss it with anybody if somebody joins into the chat. We'll see. We'll see. I am thinking that maybe inviting somebody to come and play along for, well, just more basic interactive type chat might not be a bad thing, but we'll see. We'll see. As I said before, I know I'm not necessarily too regular usually when it comes to doing these live streams. So yeah, I imagine not too many people actually expected me to be live 2 weeks in a row, let alone, next week's going to be 3 and 4. And I'm actually planning on sticking to this. So in time, I suppose people will get used to it. But, oh, I see we've got a couple of people back now. So say hello in the chat. Let me know who's out there. So, well, I can say hello right back to you, And we'll see, well, if anybody did their homework this week and learned a little bit about some bugs for your fields and pastures, or just what's, failing that, just what else is going on in anybody's life as we're live at the moment. Yeah. So I think one of the things, there are two things, obviously, I want to talk to, discuss about Jonathan Lundgren and what I learned. The main one is probably the insects and how the diversity in our fields leads to a diversity of insect life, and how ultimately that can reduce our overall pest numbers in the fields. And also, I'd like to discuss kind of how he goes into in one of his speeches about how science is somewhat for sale these days and is easily manipulated by large corporations to basically prove black is white and red is blue and up is down and whatever they want, just by, well, creating favorable situations for the outcome they're looking for, so that they can say, no, our science says that this and this and this. And, they'll just go out and basically pay a bunch of scientists to come up with the answers that they want in order to, I won't say cover up, but I'll say bury under other studies the ones that go against them. There's a lot of this stuff going on with pesticides and stuff, and Dr. Lundgren goes into, glyphosate, whatever it is for Roundup, and a couple of those other things, and talks about the various ways they do the safety tests for those. And I found that all really quite interesting. And when he goes into the details of it, you can really see just how hard it would be, I don't know, to even be honest about it with a risk assessment for this. There are so many chemicals that go into it, and when you put one thing out there, that's one thing, but when you add something else to it, it creates a whole different reaction, and that needs to be tested separately. And yeah, the whole risk assessment situation there totally sucks, and I can see, how easily it could be manipulated. So that is quite tragic. And I was thinking about that, and thinking about last week we were talking about Alan Savory, and if you kind of look at it and consider his situation, he's kind of been put through those same ringers of being discredited as, his studies don't mean anything, and we'll just create a whole bunch more studies that say other things. And this whole climate change situation going on right now, I mean, there are so many people that are so this side or that side, it's fake, it's real, it's man-made, it's not, like, whatever. It doesn't take much to realize that the weather is getting weirder by the year, and we need to be able to deal with that. And it doesn't take much to realize that some of these farmers have got some pretty good ideas about how to make their land a little bit stronger in the drought years, and how to help their land absorb a little bit more in the flood years. And if you put it all together, you can stop a lot of floods downriver, and it all sounds pretty good to me. And a big part of that is diverse root structures going down to different layers, and bringing up different minerals and trace elements and things, and also putting carbon in at different layers. But at the same time, above ground, they're drawing different things. There are different insects that are going to be looking for homes in each and every one of those plants that you put out into your field. And yeah, it would be way better, I think, for more farmers to use less pesticides, right? Like, it just makes sense. And when you get right down to it, the financial savings from not spraying all this stuff in your fields, like, I've heard some just ridiculous numbers. And fertilizers are no better. Those numbers are just crazy too. It amazes me what these guys pay to, go out and spray. And then they're paying for the tractor that they're doing it in, and they're paying for, probably somebody to do it in the tractor because they're bored and they don't want to be out in the field, and all of this stuff. Or too busy, pardon me, they're too busy to be out in the field themselves. They're going to pay somebody else to do it. But I don't want to do it because I'm cheap for starters. Like, so I'm just never going to engage in that kind of program anyway. But seeing the benefits that come from not spraying, and seeing the benefits that come from planting more diversely, it's just absolutely incredible. And I am really looking forward to experiencing this stuff firsthand, getting my hands dirty out in the fields, as it were. And yeah, doing a little bit of restoration would absolutely be lovely. So we're at 7 minutes in. I've got one viewer, and I don't know if my chat over here is broken or what, but it doesn't look like anybody's saying anything. So let's make sure this is working. Oh, well, that worked. So yeah, it's a little one-sided, this particular conversation, but let's see. What else did I learn about Dr. Jonathan Lundgren other than, well, he spent 20 some odd years studying bugs, so that makes him pretty educated on that one. And he's got quite an academic resume before he joined the regenerative agriculture movement, and apparently got an award from President Obama for something that he was doing. So that's kind of impressive. I mean, I haven't really done full research into all of that stuff, but considering the modern days and the internet and stuff, I'm not quite sure why'd he lie about that. It's easy enough to fact check if you want to. I just can't be bothered, really. I'm more interested in the theories that he's sharing, and some of the facts that he's sharing. And yeah, I don't know. It's all very interesting. So, talking to myself, this is kind of weird. This channel's been having some issues with the live streams, I've noticed, and been having some issues getting noticed in general. A lot of the videos have gone way, way down lately. I'm not sure if that's topical or YouTube algorithms or what, but yes, hard to say, hard to say. I haven't really done my checking either to find out if this is a good time to go live. Perhaps there are a lot of really popular people out there going live right now. I just knew that this was an opportunity to fit it into my personal time slot. So I thought I'd give it a go there and see if there was much interest. Don't seem to see much going on, though. So, yes. Got a thumbs up. So there's somebody out there. Eric, hey, buddy. Somebody live in the chat. You know what? I am thinking I need to just invite you into these in a hangout type situation, because it's getting lonely talking to the chalkboard, man. Getting lonely. Hope you're doing well. Oh, needed that. A lot of babbling at nothing. So, Eric, are you familiar with Dr. Lundgren in all of your research? I'm guessing you probably are. You seem to know all of the other names that I've got on my list, so not too surprised if you are. Doing good. How about me? Well, uh, doing all right, I guess. Incredibly stupid mechanical problems at work today, but it's a 20-year-old barn, and a lot of this stuff hasn't been changed since it was put in. So now that I'm there, it seems to be breaking. But that's fun. I got paid to stand around and chat with the boss for an hour while he worked. It was neat. Normally it's the boss standing around doing nothing, but he's like, no, no, don't even hold the ladder. If I fall, I don't have far to go. And I'm like, dude, when you interviewed me for this job, you were all like, we take the safety of our employees seriously. I just have to reevaluate that situation today. He's got that ladder, he's rocking it on those four legs, and he's not a big guy, but this ladder is clearly feeling the stress. And I just wanted to hold it there. Just safety first, man. Yeah. Don't think you've heard of them, Dr. Jonathan Lundgren. Well, there you go. You might find all this interesting then. He's kind of no pesticides kind of guy. And yet at the same time, he's not saying absolutely don't use them. It's just use them with respect, I believe, is his real kick on that. But Dr. Lundgren goes off in great detail in a couple of videos that I linked on last Wednesday's video. One is kind of all about bugs and how useful they are. And I had no idea there was a predatory predatory wasp for every type of pest that could be out there. Bounty, hey man, how you doing? Nice to see you in the chat. So yeah, if you get the diversity out in your pasture, then you draw in all of these different type of beneficial insects, and you can basically grow yourself a whole lot of a more environmentally friendly crop just by putting the diversity out there and not killing off things. And that's really kind of cool. He goes off too in the other video that I linked about how science is kind of being manipulated to stifle creativity and prevent the shifting agricultural paradigm, and how, he mentions a movie that's on Netflix, and of course, I can't remember it now that it actually comes to it, because do I take notes? No. But basically, the tobacco companies figured out a long time ago how to use science against science, really. And they go out and pay for more studies that are favorable to their perspective and are going to come out with the outcome that they're specifically looking for. And they use those to say that the study beforehand that said that they were a risk, in the case of the tobacco companies, was bunk. It was full of holes. He describes it all way better than I do. And I'm just trying to draw attention to this individual and his message. But it's really quite fascinating. And I was mentioning kind of earlier that you can see how it's happened to a few different people, and looking at Alan Savory and what he's been through over his years of defending his position. You can kind of see how that's happened there too. So yes, very, very interesting just to kind of see it all laid out block by block. And I really do hope more people go out and check out some of these lecturers that I've found. Not necessarily in attempts to shape anybody's perspective, but just kind of open your ears up, open your eyes up. And we all search down different rabbit holes and find different things as we're looking and getting lost in the YouTube algorithm. So I think if we all kind of share with each other what we found, we're all going to learn more. And I'm hoping that these chat videos are an opportunity, to do just that, and kind of share and learn and share. But I think, yeah, the biggest thing that I take out of Jonathan Lundgren is the fact that science seems to be for sale. So, watch and, let's take Bounty by Observation. That's the perfect name, actually, to describe this kind of what I'm trying to say is use your own eyes, see what happens in front of you, and kind of forget what everybody says is going to work or isn't going to work. And that's kind of been my philosophy with my gardening channel too, is yeah, this is going to fail, but I want to know why it fails. So I'm going to try it anyway. and I'm going to learn from my own experiences, and I'm going to, increase my results because I have learned why this works or why this doesn't work or how this can be done differently. And yeah, it's fascinating. I lost my point there. I've got to start taking notes for these damn things. But no, don't restart now. Bad laptop. Oh, hopefully we're still all good there. It was just threatening to restart on me for some random reason. So I don't know why. I just turned it on for the first time in like a week. So there's that. Anyway, yeah, so please go out and check out Jonathan Lundgren. I've got a lot of other people on the list, and looking at some of the other comments that have come up on some of the previous videos, like Gabe Brown has come up, and he's well worth investigating, but that's kind of putting it all together. And who else came up? Ray Archuleta came up in one of the comments, so that was good. He's another very interesting fellow, and he works very closely with Gabe. I'm going to be looking into Dave Brandt, Dave Brandt, I don't know, out of Ohio there. He's doing a lot of interesting things with, I want to call them polycultures, but mixed plantings, ridiculously large numbers and varieties of seeds in interspacing, intercropping. There are so many of these terms that seem so specific when one person talks about it, but at the same time seem to be such a generalized concept, and they're all kind of somewhat interchangeable, and it's a very gray space out there. But a lot of these guys are basically increasing the diversity in their fields through like the microbiology in the soil, through the plants that are in the soil, with the bugs and the animals that are on the soil, just doing it all that way. And they're finding that they can increase the microbiology and the biological activities in the soil, basically, to pull down all the nitrogen that they need from the air, because there are ridiculous amounts of nitrogen in the air. Something like 30,000 pounds or whatever of nitrogen in the air above any given acre of land. That's just, it's phenomenal. So again, I don't know why farmers pay for the inputs that they do if that's just out in the air to be grabbed by plants naturally. When the plants are feeding the soil properly, why would anybody pay to spray when you can get it for free? I don't get it. I don't understand a lot of what goes on in we'll call it modern agriculture, but I mean, hopefully it's what agriculture used to be. But I mean, the current face of modern agriculture, I don't understand so much of it. And a big part of that blockage, I think, is I grew up in a city, but I was fully aware of how farms functioned. And growing up in a city, it all made perfect sense. But once I moved out to the country and I looked at what it did to the land, I started realizing that this makes no sense at all. And what I really don't understand is how people who have been out here for their whole lives can't learn from what they're seeing that something is wrong with what's going on around them. Like, we got people that are 90 years old in town. They've been here their whole lives. They've watched the lakes go down. They've watched the wildlife numbers dwindle. They've seen it all fall, but they don't go, hey man, maybe it's how we're farming. It's crazy. Eric, I thought about why they don't plant a field of white clover and plant corn into it. There's somebody, I can't remember the name at the moment, he's on the list, but he's planting alfalfa with his corn and apparently getting really wicked results from that. Clover is, I think, somewhat abused because everybody associates clover, legumes in general, with putting that nitrogen down into the soil. And they are particularly good at it, which is, I think, how they got their reputation in the first place. But it turns out every plant out there is perfectly capable of joining with microbiology in the soil, assuming it's a good, adequate living soil. And also it has to have was it like 4% organic matter or more in there for them to wake up and do their jobs, which is a weird thing that science has yet to explain. But you know what? We don't have to understand it to be able to take advantage of the situation. So if we feed organic material into the soil and get natural carbon into the soil, fluff it up that way, then basically the soil will provide for any plant that's in there, and the biology will start sucking the nitrogen out of the air. And yeah, 30 plus thousand pounds of nitrogen above any given acre, for sure. So get that organic material into the soil. How do you do that? Well, you grow your plants, living roots. The longer the living roots are in there, the more carbon they're putting into the soil. And that beats the tar out of any mulching program or anything out there. So that's great. Clovers are great, but I think they're really heavily, I don't know, they're a crutch for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's a starting point. So, you know, when you start somewhere, that's great, but you need to continue on the path, or else you just took a step forward and now you're still standing still. You got a slightly different view, but not much has changed, you know? So when it comes to like multi-cropping, I guess would be another great way to put it. Some of these guys are doing like 8, 9, 12, 16, 32 way plantings in the single bit of land, you know, and they're experiencing phenomenal results because the different plants are communicating back and forth. They're feeding different parts of the soil. And this is Dr. Christine Jones and Chris Nichols. We'll both go into this in great detail in the lectures that I'm going to share with you guys later on. But yeah, they're all doing different things to feed different parts of the soil, and the soil is feeding and communicating back and forth with itself. And there's a whole world of difference between soil and dirt. Oh my goodness, I had no idea. And actually, a few years ago on one of my garden videos, somebody commented, "You're not growing in soil, you're growing in dirt." And I got a little defensive, I'll admit it, because this was good compost. I had worked hard to turn and make that compost, and I thought it was good compost. And no, they're absolutely right. It was effectively dirt. There was very little, you know, living microbiology in there making it the soil. And soil by kind of needs to be made by plants anyway, because it's ultimately made out of the things that the roots excrete to get bound and bonded together with other like living organisms, and they pull things in. You get these little knobs on your roots, and those become the soil. That's the carbon that's being built into the soil. I'm not a doctor of any of this stuff. I've just been diving into it. You know, it's like diving into the deep end of the swimming pool and finding out you're trying to swim your way back up through jello. You're trying to, you know, absorb as much of this information as you can. But yeah, I've only been able to take in so much, and that too is why I hope to have these conversations with you guys, and I hope that you know, we can have some question and answer type stuff going on in the future. So yeah. So aside from all that, anybody got anything they want to chat about before I wrap this up, or what's new and exciting in anybody's world for people out there? So hello to the four of you. Eric and Bounty have stopped by. I know this much, but who are the other two? No one knows. Did I look up Barefoot Farmer? I did, and it turns out they go, like, their main channel has a different name that I actually am already subbed to. I just didn't know them as the Barefoot Farmer. So yeah, I have that note downstairs because that's where I do most of my computer type stuff. This is just kind of somewhere where I can have a clean background, not all cluttered by, well, the chaos that is my living room. Yeah, that's crazy down there. In the live streams, I've noticed it's just far too nuts. But I did look up that guy based on your suggestion, and my notepad is down there. Not really focusing on channels in this particular run through individuals, but howdy Sam. But so much as like lecturers and people that have really just gone way deep down the rabbit holes of their individual thing, to try and show you what their specialization has brought up on this. So, what do you think about the back to Eden method? I think the back to Eden method is very, very interesting, but I have no practical experience with that either. I like the idea of letting the ground be covered, right? And as I understand it, your wood chips and stuff cover the ground, so nature's not exposed, which is good. But I, the more I get into it, I think I prefer that the ground be covered by living material. So back to Eden is fantastic for like an urban type situation, if you're doing a garden, if you're reestablishing a yard or something like that. But I think in a larger pasture or field or cropland type situation, it's really not that practical. You can take it to the point that Joel Saladin kind of has, because he uses all his wood chips to make sure everything is covered, but he's also racking those wood chips full of dead stock and manure and, you know, the pigerators and all that stuff that he does. Um, so that gets, again, the wood chips are back in there, and that sinks down that carbon from the trees. And you know, carbon in trees is kind of sketchy because it's, you know, one way or another it's probably going back up into the atmosphere. And even as mulch in a back to Eden situation, it is slowly deteriorating, is slowly oxidizing and becoming CO2. And it's good, but it could be better. But I think it's a fabulous starting point. And like I say, for more urban scenarios, I think it is definitely, it's a way to go. Eric, I think in dry areas, I agree, because you've got the soil covered up, right? And you can't necessarily feed all of those plants. Although that is another opinion that I would like to challenge with the future speaker, because there's a lot of things that are saying kind of the more plants you got going in there for longer, the better it'll do at keeping the moisture. And it's all kind of, you need those plants to be able to feed those plants, and it seems counterintuitive, but it's actually quite productive. Living Web Farms got good videos. Yeah, I will absolutely agree with that too. Like I say, there are a lot of great channels out there. Swedish Homestead was recommended to me as a great channel I should look into. And of course, I know about Simeon. He's got Highland cattle. Of course, I watch this channel. I love Highland cattle. And yeah, he's doing fabulous things, but I don't think this is necessarily kind of where I'm going with this particular series. More about the sciencey types. I'm trying to maybe draw in a few people who also wouldn't normally come to the channel by bringing in a sense of the science. Plus, I'm kind of trying to manifest this situation. There's a gentleman who invites people like this, and some of the people that we're actually going to talk about, in to talk about the local farmers. And I would like the energy put out into the universe that maybe he hears about this YouTuber in the area and would ask me to come and record these for posterity, you know, so I can be at some of these lectures for free and, well, share them firsthand with you that way. But yeah, I'm putting that energy out there. This is part of that. It's weird, but you know, I've seen people who believe in stranger stuff. So. The wood chips can hurt you in high rain areas. It'll hold too much moisture. Hold too much moisture. Eric, I'm not sure I believe in that concept unless you're dealing with like root rot issues and some like stem rot issues, because the moisture needs to be held until it can be absorbed into the soil, right? So that's why a lot of these pastoralists and stuff are so concerned with the amount of grass and such that gets trampled down by the livestock and the value of that trampled grass. Root rot, and it can't dry out. Yeah, well, I mean, how dry do you really want your soil to get anyway? I've seen some pretty nasty situations come out of really dry soil. That's part of what we moved away from in BC. most people think of British Columbia as this beautiful temperate forest paradise, but we lived in this itty bitty tip of the California desert, and it was dry and it was mismanaged there. And if there's anything I don't like to see, it's soil that, you know, is too dry. Um, but really, it's a great way to baffle it. I think the trick probably there is to make sure your layer of wood chips isn't too deep. You know, you wouldn't want to go like 12 inches of wood chips or whatever, maybe like 4 or 5. So the moisture can get down, the sun can beat its way down, it can kind of work its way. You're not getting any evaporation loss from out of your soil, out of anything that's made it to the soil. But you're not getting too much of it sucked up by the wood chips either, that you're dealing with the rot issues. And I think maybe the size of the wood chip probably really factors into that too. I would imagine, you know, larger, let's call them wood chunks, are going to have a different sort of drainage effect and a different evaporative effect and a different just plain mulching effect than, you know, like you might find, well, the chicken coop, for example, those pine shavings. You know, a lot of people think about that when they think about wood chips. It's one of the first things that come to mind. Or your standard Big W box store, strange little wood chunks too that comes to mind with bark mulch. It's I don't know, it's strange. When it comes down to it, I like any garden method you can get started with or that inspires you to get started, whichever perspective you choose. I like anything for the soil that covers it and feeds it. I like any opportunity to get more plants growing rather than less. I like the idea of putting as many different types of plants into one space as possible. And yeah, I like the idea of repairing my farm so every year it'll get better and better. You won that lemon starburst contest using my organic method. Dude, I wasn't able to watch all of your various harvest videos on that, but it seemed like every time I turned around, you were posting another harvest, and that thing did so well. Um, do you have a video specifically on what you did for that plant, or is just kind of your organic method in general that you're referring to? So I think you know, anybody watching this in the future may be interested. So maybe come back when you get a second after this is done, post a link to it in the comments. I'll make sure it gets pulled out of the spam filter because I told you to put that link in there. I gave you the power. Speaking of which, I'd give you a wrench, but I got a mouse pad on this laptop instead of an actual mouse, and I'm afraid of like accidentally timing you out or something. So I'm not good with these little flat pads. Back when I was using the internet, the mouse had a wheel, and the mouse pad was the little foamy bit you moved it around on. And this new technology, somebody slaps me with an OK Boomer bumper sticker, I'm sure. But I'm not a boomer. I'm Gen X, which means I'm the original trouble. Not really. Every generation's been trouble according to the generation before it, and every generation has screwed things up according to the generation after it. So, yeah, generation of wine is a whole different conversation too. Anybody got another question or thought? Thinking of random thoughts, Eric, I've been putting a little more effort into that vegetarians are destroying the planet video that I was kind of discussing. I think I might go a little bit overboard with it because I'm having a lot of fun kind of planning it. I haven't made a good spoof video in a long time, and I haven't really let my sarcasm flow in quite some time. So it's going to be fun and full of outrageous sounding, absolutely backable facts. And they will all be blown way out of proportion and taken completely out of context. So it's going to be fun. Oh, I could really use a viral video, Eric. I tell you what, if it goes viral, I'll make sure you have that hot wire fencing for your goats. I freaking promise, dude. Yeah, that'd be great. One viral video, and I'm onto acreage, and I'm starting to prove all this stuff I'm learning about. So my real question is, should I put a warning label on the beginning of it? Warning, you must have a funny bone to appreciate this video, or warning, this video rated M for meatitarian. I don't know, but that's kind of the level of sarcasm I'm going at this with. And being the bloodline that I am, and a Canadian to boot, sarcasm is something I have a wee bit of experience with. So, yes, outrageous facts. I can't wait. I am going to rip into iceberg lettuce. But I'm not a huge fan of iceberg lettuce anyway. I'm a kale guy. Really, if you're going to eat a leafy green, eat one with some nutritive value, right? Iceberg is water and a little bit of fiber and a waste of a good garden opportunity. Oh, oh. Yeah, not a fan of iceberg. So I will be ripping into that one, and yeah, having some fun with it. So I think it's probably going to take a while for me to get that one made, because I have so many thoughts. And normally I don't have much of a thought when I go into my videos. I just whip out the camera. I'm going to go, this is what I want to talk about today, and we're going to talk about it. Kind of like this live stream, except I'm holding the camera in front of my face instead. So you got that slightly off kilter angle, and yeah. And yet it doesn't feel anywhere near as awkward talking to the camera as it does talking to a live stream. That is an interesting sort of thing. Gonna be fun though, gonna be fun. Let's see, other video ideas that I've been toying with. I don't really have anything big. I was thinking about doing a better explanation of proper pasture management somewhere along the line in this series. It may just be its own side video, not sure. Most people now, there's not much of anything good in iceberg. Yeah, well, yeah, there's not really. How many lettuce recalls have there been in the last few years too, right? Seems almost every time we turn around, there's an E. coli scare recalling this lettuce or that lettuce or the other lettuce. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So much fun. So much fun. Did you know it takes over 45,000 square feet to grow a single acre of lettuce? Just 1 acre. Oh, see, and you got to put the outrage there too, right? Because I think that's what it's. I was explaining this to Shocks earlier. My goal is, Mio, you made it. My goal is to either make people that appreciate it spit their coffee at their computer, or make snowflakes have conniption fits, just with every single comment. So it's going to take me a while to get this out there. And there are a few farms that I'm going to ask for permission to borrow their livestock for a couple of clips. I work in an industrial barn, so obviously I can't get footage from there, but I go past 2 or 3, depending on how they're divided for the day, little herds of cattle every day on my way to and from work. And I would like very much to use, in particular, the calf herd that they've got divided for some reason. I guess they're weaning, but yeah, I don't think they really need to worry about that. Anyway, I would like to use their calf herd as an example of basically environmental saviors hard at work. So I'm going to need to ask permission. But I helped them out a little while back, and they seem pretty nice people. They had one of these calves that was running down the road. Escape artist, little Caffey Houdini. This thing was out there every couple of days, and they had puppies at the time too. So these guardian puppies were wandering up and down the gravel highway with this cow or calf. So one day I stopped in there and I'm like, do you know that your little white, I think it's a heifer, is out on the street there, and your little white guardian dog is just sitting there happy as can be and not hurting it back into the yard. So they were happy enough. So hopefully that introduction will be enough that if I go wandering onto their land with the camera and it's like, look, I just think you've got pretty cows and I want to show people, look, you can heal the land if you do it properly. And actually, I kind of would like to do a tour of their farm as a tour, but that's a little invasive, isn't it? But like from driving by, you can kind of tell how land is being managed by what it looks like, right? And it looks like these people are following some of the principles of these individuals that I want to share with you. Like in the last 12 months, they put up one of the sexiest solar power systems I have ever seen in my life. It is huge, but they're not letting their animals graze underneath it. So I think they're halfway there, and I'd like to help them finish their journey and get them the rest of the way. Babette, welcome, welcome. Um, so there's a lot of people that are starting, I think, here in Manitoba because our weather is kind of extreme as it is. So we kind of need to deal with more extreme situations. There are people that are getting into it, and because of people like Gabe Brown who are being successful with all this regenerative agriculture just south in North Dakota there. I mean, from the way he describes Bismarck, he might as well be here in Strath. Like, in fact, it almost looks like he gets more snow. So if he can do it there, I can do it here, or a variation of it at any rate. My grandpa lost his 1,000-acre farm because he refused the modern ways to farm. He raised pigs over 200 acres of woods and pasture. Well, that's sucks, really. Raising them over the 200 acres of woods and pasture sounds great. I don't know about losing the farm, though. Is that like in the 80s? Was there some sort of law that said if you didn't do it this way, we're going to take your shit? Or was it just the money was so tight if you didn't do it that way, just there was going to be no way? Or I was young in the 80s. All I remember is Expo 86, a lot of bad fashion and even worse hair. So Ronald Reagan, was that the 80s? I was 5 in 1980. So yeah. Um, I'm really sorry to hear that he lost that. Bet his meat tasted better than today's. Yeah, I'd bet that too. What's funny is I was chatting about that at the hog barn with one of my coworkers. He's going off about how, pork just doesn't taste as good as it did when I was a kid. And I'm looking around at our industrial confinement barn where we make the bacon seeds that go off to other people's larger industrial confinement barns. And I'm thinking about all this stuff. I'm learning about woods pigs and timber pigs and forest raised hogs and natural pastured pigs. And I'm looking around at all these confinement barns and the hogs. And he's saying, oh, don't taste good. Well, duh. Well, duh. What's it moved? Maybe 5 feet in between being shuffled down the hallway. It wiggles, it jiggles. It don't beat all you ever saw. It is not impressive, you know. They wouldn't buy the pigs at the stockyards. Oh, because he had wild disease issues and stuff like that, right? Because they were going crazy about that. I think Joel Saladin goes off about that in a couple of his videos. Yeah, well, the stockyards, I think, are probably even now really hurting regenerative agriculture. And I think a lot of us, if we want to really succeed, we're going to have to kind of come up with our own slaughterhouses and our own butcher shops that are prepared to deal with old-fashioned livestock, which is what it is. Getting back to Simeon and the Swedish Homestead, he's had problems with his Highland cattle because they don't want to deal with the hair at the butcher shop. It takes longer and blah blah blah. So they want to charge him ridiculously more to process an animal. And I think a lot of us are facing shades of this kind of discrimination. Oh, I don't want to slaughter that. That cow looks too small. Well, it's fully finished. You can tell from its brisket. You can tell from its conditioning that this is good steak right here. Oh, but it's small. Yeah, okay. So I'm raising a heritage breed. What's your problem? Oh, don't even get me started on that. Actually, I've got a lot of opinions on cattle breeding, and of course, I have someone to share and his opinions on how to breed better cattle. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I hopefully won't rustle too many feathers with that. I remember them docking him because he didn't clip tails. Yeah, they still do that to us with the bacon seeds. if their tails aren't snipped by the time they get onto the truck to go south, most of our pork heads across the border, we get dinged for it, pretty big, actually. It's kind of stupid, some of the things that they ding us for, because a lot of it's kind of out of our control. It's a long truck ride from our barn to their barn, and yeah, that's all somebody else's problem, though. And I look at it as problems I'm not going to face when I'm finally working off my own land. Now, that said, I can't raise pigs until I'm out of the industrial barn because of biosecurity issues and things like that. And I think it's a little asinine, ridiculous, because of how I want to do them. And, you know, in reality, my pigs are going to be cleaner than the pigs that I go to clean up of after work. I clean up after at work. But they're so worried about disease and transmission of disease and things. It's outrageous. Now I understand that industrial barns have had huge problems in the past and have cost farmers millions and threatened, the pork supply, and the chickens have been through it, and the cattle industry's been through it, and all of the livestock industries have been through it. But I mean, this should have been a sign to anybody really paying attention, that something is wrong, something needs to change, because we've been raising these animals for thousands of years, and variations of them existed in the wild for tens and hundreds of thousands of years before that, but none of these problems ever occurred. Clearly, it's something we are doing with the animals that is creating these problems. It seems really straightforward when you kind of step back and look at it. I don't know. What do we got? I can't wait for if I get into the country. I want to be able to hatch my own eggs and have a pig or two. Yeah. Bulk animal barns are unhealthy places. The germs are more prevalent. Tell me about it. Tell me about it. And I clean up the barn, and I'm the only one there without health coverage. Explain that. Had their own lines of pigs since the 1800s. Oh, and I'm betting that cured so well. Probably really nicely marbled meat, because you're talking about before refrigeration was like everywhere, and the animals had to have more fat back then because they had to be cured. They had to last. They had to overwinter. Like, oh, it's going to be all about heritage stuff. Hatching my own eggs. See, that's an interesting one, Mio. I don't know. I bought the chicks this year, and that was pretty cool. I had a 100% survival ratio, and I'm okay with that. I don't know if I'm going to get to hatching my own eggs, before I just let a chicken do it. Once we get onto land, oh yeah, you can bet your hiney I'll be finding myself a rooster and start making women of them girls out there. But yeah, I'm not going to be bringing anything in for incubators and stuff like that, because again, I think it comes down to I'm cheap. I want to do this as cheap as humanly possible. And if that means I don't buy something to use electricity, so there's another expense to make this happen, and instead let nature take its course, maybe I get 3 out of 5 instead of 5 out of 5. Big deal. There's still 3 free chickens. So that aspect of it I like. I'm not cool with the idea of incubating them, though. Well, yeah, let the chickens do it if they can. Well, that's exactly it, right? And animal husbandry is a big part of proper farm and ranch management too, and I kind of think that has been very uh, foolishly manipulated. And I think a lot of people have their breeding schedules so out of sync with where these animals would be if they were running around in nature. That's another thing that I want to really focus on, is trying to make sure my livestock, ideally heritage livestock, but I'm going to be starting with whatever I can get my hands on, right? Because you got to start somewhere. But I'm going to do my best to make sure my livestock are on a natural cycle. So that's going to mean a lot of things that run a little different to the way everybody else around here farms. And they're going to look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm going to look at them like they're crazy, and they're going to continue spraying their fields. And cutting their hay and paying their tractor payments, and I'm just going to be sitting out there, and it's one of those weirdos with my little 4x4 and moving my fences and winter grazing my cattle and bringing them into the tree sheltered area when it gets to be really, really crappy outside. All right, well, the wind chill's dropping to below -50. Feels like -52 degrees. Oh yeah, yeah. Well, make sure the cattle are sheltered. But you know what? I'm not building them a barn. It's not going to happen. Oh, it's not going to happen. I'm not a fan of roosters because of the kids. They would flog the kids. Well, yeah, you gotta, make sure the children going into the animal environment are aware of what the animals can do. And if the children are not in a position to care for themselves, you got to make sure the animals can't do much of anything, right? So, yeah. Haven't had a rooster yet. I'm going to be really curious because I've had a couple of uppity hens. Man, them cluckers, they get right in my face some days. I tell you what. And they're like, where you going with that egg? What you doing with that? Doesn't matter how many times you explain to them, look, there's no rooster. This is never going to hatch. It's going to rot or draw rats. I am doing you a favor. They want nothing to do with it. There's this one, she's got a little spot of green food coloring on her back half there because she is consistently quite aggressive. She has gone at my hand several times, and I'm pretty sure she's the one who pecked Fuzzy. She got him like right here. Oh, you should have heard him whimper. I haven't heard that since before he hit puberty. He was really, I shouldn't laugh, but for everything our children put us through, it's okay to laugh at them from time to time. And I didn't do it, the chicken did, so whatever, right? Ask Rev his rooster stories. Oh, I know. I've heard a few of Rev's rooster stories, and not even bothering to lock them up at night because maybe something will get them. We should be so lucky. He's got a rough go with it, with chickens and roosters and wind and his greenhouse. Oh my God. I tell you, there's a project. If I had, unlimited money, the kind of money where you can just do whatever the hell you want, I would send somebody down to build that boy a solid greenhouse, like the quality that I need to build here. And his greenhouse down there is part of why I know I need to build strong here, because I've seen what happens when you put film, even good proper greenhouse film, in a high wind area, especially when there's a lot of trees. And I got a few trees and 640 acres, more than 3/4 of a mile anyway, but that's like, town is this itty bitty piece of a section of land. And I don't know if it's the same in the States, but a section up here is a mile by a mile. And yeah, the wind rips off of that and all the snow blows off of that because they're not real big on leaving the stubble there to harvest the snow. But I can change that now because my boss at the barn is one of the guys who drives tractors and combines for the guy who leases the field, the north field, what I call, just across my fence there. And so I am going to slowly feed him bits of information about how that guy could be making or saving more money by doing less work, so that in theory everybody wins, and maybe there'll be less shit sprayed on the other side of the fence interfering with what I'm trying to do in my garden, right? But you live on a farm field, you get what you get. You can't really complain. That said, I'm really excited about my garden when I'm on our own bit of land and it's not getting overspray from anybody else's stuff. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if I can influence what happens in that north field just by making suggestions about, stripping it a little higher and leaving the stubble. It'd be really nice to not have it all blow across my yard, things like that. Because if you approach these situations with a sense of humor, sometimes you're going to get a lot farther than if you approach these situations going, I know how to fix your problems, because nobody wants to admit they have a problem. So what do? Laptop, don't even be like that. Be good. Hopefully we're good? We're good. Eric, oh man, oh man, oh man. So this is the third time my laptop's interfering with me today? Close. All right, let's try this again. Never shown my greenhouse built on my house yet. We had it built about 10 years ago. We just fill it with leaves and let the chickens in it. Well, yeah, they're going to work those leaves over right good. Any bugs that are in there, they're going to go, oh, look, snack. And their droppings are going to break it down pretty darn well, too. I mean, I have been super impressed by how well chickens beat up a compost pile. Like, got them a year ago in September. It's October, November. So I'm like 14 months with chickens. And my compost pile that's been here for 4 years dealing with, it's not ideally located, but it's your standard compost pile. I go out, I turn it in the spring, I turn it in the fall, I add to it. It's still nowhere near as broken down as the stuff I put in the chicken coop last fall for them to play with was by the following spring. Like it's insane. And now we have 13 of them out there as compared to the 4 that did that. So I'm actually kind of scrounging around and looking for compostables. We found, well, I shouldn't say we, Shocks found a pile of straw that apparently is fair game because they're the old time iron club, the old iron club. Anyway, they're a bunch of old guys that have classic antique and even older, like ridiculously old threshing equipment and things like that. They make sure it's still working, and they put on demonstrations every year. And this pile of straw is what's left from that. So anybody who needs it is totally welcome to grab it. So I'm going to swing out there one of these nights and fill my trunk and toss it into the chicken coop so that there's something to absorb all of that manure because I just don't have enough carbon for that right now. But the greenhouse on the house is it's a beautiful concept in and of itself from that. Like Punky has recently done, I believe she put a half greenhouse onto her place and well, cooling the greenhouse to heat the house, right? Like, yeah, you're going to generate a lot of warmth that way, and you could potentially drop quite a bit off of your power bill if if your greenhouse is in the right location. Eric, I do need a truck. I really do. I've had so many of them when I didn't need them, and now that I really need them, I don't have one. But I will be getting one probably. I don't know, nothing fancy, right? Like a little beater box Ranger 4-banger, 4-wheel drive, 4-cylinder, standard. I don't care. That'd be perfect. Maybe something I can pick up for $500. Doesn't even need to pass safety because a farm truck and I'm good, right? Almost all the roads I travel on are gravel. And I can't even remember the last time I saw a cop sitting on the side of one of them roads waiting for somebody driving along without insurance. Which is a shame because, there are a lot of beer cans that are tossed out on the sides of these roads, especially during hunting season. Not a good combination. So it'd be nice to see them out there kind of keeping an eye on that at least. Wild partiers with 30-odd sixes. Hey, no way that could go wrong. But yeah, I need a truck for so many reasons. I got stuff to haul to the dump. I got stuff to haul from the dump. I'm going to need something to haul hay around in. Yeah, a truck is totally on my to-do list. Mine is the whole length of our house and about 15 feet or so wide. It's sexy. See, that sounds nice. I'm just a guess, south side, right? So even with your, I want to call them milder winters because I think you live somewhere that's a little bit warmer than Canada. So yeah, with your milder winters, that's still going to generate a lot of warmth for you, eh? See, I want to do that so bad. We've got that one little patch that I keep saying, oh, I'm going to put a sunroom on here in one of these days. And just everything keeps cropping up and there's always something and always something and always putting it off. But ultimately, I think it kind of comes down to the money I could spend putting additions on this house or putting improvements into this house could also be banked and squirreled away and shortly become the down payment on acreage. And I think we all know I'd rather have acreage. So while I want to do all these things, the odds of them actually getting done if they involve any actual cash are pretty remote. Anything I can do to improve the house or property and not spend a dime on, I will do. I will do that wholeheartedly. But yeah, that other money just seems to be going to other places, Indiana, well, that's not bad. That's definitely warmer than here. Although I guess you guys do get some proper type winter activity there. I keep telling my husband that I'll let him buy any truck he wants if we're in the country. That and a motorcycle. Well, careful with that any truck, because them dualies, whew, I had me one of them dualies, and hey, tell you what, man, you get in that thing and you feel like you're the king of the road, and you hit them hairpin turns at like 90 kilometers an hour, which is about 12 miles an hour or whatever it relates to. Anyway, it's like 90 kilometers because you feel untippable in those things. You get a little suspiciously trusting of your vehicle with dualies, so you might want to rein him in if he takes that direction. And motorcycle, well, yeah, yeah, motorcycle anywhere in the prairies, at least 5 months of the year. Yeah, yeah. Again, it's on my to-do list because again, I had one when I was younger. My friends were so loving. They called it my Yamaha ha 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 500 because they're all Harleys and Indians, and yeah, you got to have a real bike, and if you're a real man, you got a real bike. And I'm like, dude, this guy towed my car home, saw the Fiero that caught fire. I told him that it caught fire and nobody would work on it for me now. I said, hey, I'll trade you a motorcycle for it that won't run. So I traded a car that caught fire for a motorcycle that wouldn't run, and I turned around, pushed that motorcycle down my driveway, and got it to run. It just needed basically to be bomb start and run around the block a few times, and I was good to go. And it turns out he was just as lucky with the Fiero. He replaced, I think he said like the lead wires and a couple of really minor things, less than $200, and he had that thing up and running again. It was a nice little car. We're in Calgary, right beside the rolling foothills. Oh, it'd be a lot of totally beautiful rides. Tell me about it. See, Calgary is a great location too, because you can kind of sort of see the mountains off in the distance, but you're not close enough to actually put up with all of the BS that goes along with that. So that's nice. That's nice. Been through Calgary a few times, actually. Was through there. I guess the last time would have been not last August, but the August before, because we went back to BC for Research's wedding. Our oldest son got married. Can you believe it? I'm old enough to have a kid who's married. Well, I guess Movember and looking a little scraggly. Yeah, okay. I guess I look old enough to have a kid who's married. But it was a beautiful drive back there. Killer in the Jeep, though. Like, oh, I might as well just thrown out a 20 every time we passed the gas station. But, oh, yeah, much. I'm very much looking forward to the next trip back to BC in the new car. Something that uses like, what's it averaging right now? 8 to 9 liters per 100 kilometers versus the Jeep when I parked her was averaging 21 liters per 100 kilometers. She's hurting. She's hurting bad. We get deer in our front yard. My tomatoes were eaten. Well, in my personal opinion, that makes those deer poachers. And I believe Canadian law says since they are poaching from your crop, you are well within your legal rights to stock your freezer. But that all depends on what's more important to you, the venison or the tomatoes. I would probably try the poaching thing if anybody approached me because there were deer in my yard. See, that's too, is I think the local wildlife are aware of this mindset of mine because everybody around here, oh, the deer were in my garden. Oh, the deer this, oh, the deer that. And I'm like, I have seen 2 or 3 deer the whole time we've been here, and they were way out in the field, like well beyond archery range. Crossbow probably could have gotten them, but I'm not that sure of my aim yet. Really, I'd shoot them if I could. Well, when in doubt, go with something quiet. Archery is wonderful and easy to learn in the city. Most neighbors don't even care if you're practicing. And it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission. So there's that. But as far as I know, there is nothing saying you can't do it when it's destroying your crop. So if your garden is your crop, because remember, my theory is a farm is a big garden, a garden's a little farm. If your garden is your cropland and that deer is encroaching on your cropland and represents what the legal wording on this is really stupid, but basically it represents a future financial loss. You're well within your rights. Now that's a farmer thing. So interpreting that for in Calgary city limits, gray area, you may need to share some venison with your neighbors, but be kind and hang it for like 21 days first. It's the right thing to do. Let's see, Eric. They always eat my sweet corn. Yeah. Well, they like sweet corn, Eric. Plant something they don't like around your sweet corn. See, that's one thing about the diversity that a lot of these guys are going into as well. You can drive a lot of things away just by planting different crops too. Like if they go for the sweet corn, but they don't go for what is it, onions, stuff like that. Try planting onions around them. Or actually, have you tried that soap trick? Because I've seen that it's all over Facebook about deer getting into your corn, your tomatoes, your blank. Take small pieces of what is it? I think it's usually ivory soap or Irish Spring. Irish Spring, is that the green one? I use liquid soaps, so I don't know. Anyway, take your little chunks of soap and like hang them in all the places where the deer frequent, and apparently that drives them away. I don't know. Practice archery in your backyard. Apparently that drives them away too, because like I say, I haven't been seeing them. I planted an acre of sweet corn a few years back. In 2 days gone. Dude. Oh, dude. We got to get you some electric fencing. That is a tragedy on so many levels. I like sweet corn. I really like sweet corn on the cob in particular, but I'll take cream corn, whole kernel corn, frozen corn. I don't care. Dried, reconstituted corn. Throw that corn in my soup. I am a fan of a tropical grass crop that we grow all over the world. It's true. Corn's a pretty intense one to try and grow commercially too. So I'm curious, Eric, when you were doing that, was that with your same kind of general organic thing, or were you putting inputs into that as well? It would be, yeah, I would be very curious to know about that, because that's one thing too with acreage. I intend to do ridiculously large garden plots, which is part of why I'm mucking about with the Three Sisters stuff on the JT Bear channel. And this coming year, I'm going to be going into the Lonely Sisters and the Big Sisters garden, because I'm trying variations on a theme, and one of them is bound to work sooner or later. And when I find one that works, that's what I'm going to be doing for my fields, because why be normal? And yeah, I'm not going to have a tractor or anything to harvest this stuff with. So, excuse me, there's no point in planting a beautifully manicured field of corn. Like I'd be able to drive it straight anyway. My rows would be all crooked and stuff. No, it wouldn't be good. Wouldn't be good. Irish Spring, I'm guessing. So yeah, the green soap. But has anybody tried that to deter deer? Has it actually worked? There are so many urban myths, old wives' tales about things that should work, shouldn't work, and that's again, that's part of why I'm just testing it all at this point. Everything I can test in a garden size area, I'm testing in a garden size area. Urea, nitrogen, and a 10-10-10. All right, so like pretty standard, right? But you said you don't use pesticides on your place. But the deer came in, so I mean, pests weren't really the problem. Venison was the problem. I want to have nice corn. Yeah, buddy. I hear you. I hear you. What's the point in growing it if it's going to be crap? I got a field full of crap corn out there. Wicked tragedy too. I went and I'm cutting some stalks down with that machete to toss them in to the chickens, so they've got some fresh carbon to trash, right? And I pulled this one up that had fallen over, and on it was the biggest, nicest, fullest, most developed ear of corn that my whole garden produced. But it had already frozen and thawed at least twice, so it was all mushy. But I'm looking at that going, why couldn't I have seen you? You're so beautiful. So it did grow some nice corn, but not consistently enough for me. And, now maybe I'll try I was going to do popcorn next year, but maybe I'll stick with the sweet corn because it might draw the deer. It might. It might. We'll see. Then I can get back to you, Mio, on that whether or not it's legal in Canada to get away with that, and they were poaching my crop. So yes. Then again, what I can get away with in small town Manitoba versus what you can get away with in a big city Alberta. I'm guessing there's going to be some variance. That's part of why I moved to small town Manitoba. That and affordability, right? It's like the acreage. We had to get a house that was just so beat on that we could actually afford it. And don't get me wrong, house, I love you. You're a beautiful house. But she didn't cost us much. Land is going to be the same way. The land is going to be so beat on when I get to it that, I think a lot of people are going to go, well, you should go out there and you should make sure you spray it. Hell, I'll even loan you the tractor. I'll pay to spray it for you. No, don't bring that near my fields. I'm going to have to put up a fence to keep other farmers out. Other farmers. That's exactly why I went out of the city. Well, right? There are so many good reasons, I think, to get out of the city, especially right now. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope that you can find your sweet spot real estate like we found out here with this house, and you can make your bounce because it's worth it. I mean, the jobs and employment opportunities out here compared to in the city, non-existent, right? The work you got to do is terrible comparatively. Like, let's see, what have I done out here? I've had 3 jobs in the 4 years we've been out here. I've worked at a machine shop, which was not good for my lungs at all. Not a real big fan of ventilation in that shop, but I worked at that for a while. And then I installed fixed Wi-Fi in the winter in like -40, -50 wind chill, climbing up people's towers and stuff. That was not fun, but that was the job that was available. And let's see. Yeah, now I work pressure washing poo in an industrial hog barn. So the job opportunities, they're different, or you got to be prepared to commute. But that said, okay, in the time it would take me, now this is going back a few years when I lived in Vancouver in BC there, to get from North Surrey to downtown Vancouver to work would often take me well over an hour. In an hour, I can get from my house to 100 kilometers away and not speed once. So the commute issue is a whole lot different. You've got a much wider area that you can consider traveling to and from for employment. But yeah, I get drift from the farmers by me. Yeah. Well, and you will, right? Because there's only so much one can do. I'm sure if those guys spraying had any way to ensure that all of what they're spraying only went on their crop, so their crop got the maximum benefit from it, they would. That's just good business. Like paying to fertilize your neighbor's crop is not good business. It's real neighborly, but it ain't good business. So I planted a huge patch of turnips. Crop duster came through and sprayed 2 days later and burnt down. Oh man. Dude, you're having a rough go on that place. So you need a couple of blinds where you're planting your corn to deal with the deer, and you need a couple of anti-aircraft platforms so you can deal with the crop dusters. Man, we don't seem to have a lot of crop dusters out here. I am very thankful for that. I know there is one plane that I've seen flying around, but as I understand it, he's a little pricey, and most folks don't want to pay for that on top of paying for the actual spray. So, yeah, that's brutal, though. Brutal. I don't like desiccants. I'm guessing that's what they were spraying is a desiccant to shut it down, like so they can harvest their grain or whatever. This year was the first time that happened. Well, at least it's not an every year thing. But was it like really windy when they were spraying that, or is it just normally that much drift from crop dusting? Could he not get close enough to the field to drop it accurately? That's oh man. I would be miffed, to put it mildly. Good on you, because I'm betting you kept your cool fairly well through that. So, yeah, good on you. The way he was flying, right? It's another one thing that ultimately comes down to management and mismanagement. If that crop duster had been paying a little more attention, perhaps doing a little bit better, hugging a little closer to the ground, when conditions been a little more favorable, could have actually ended up where it was supposed to be, but ended up all over you. That is brutal. Yeah, it sure seems like it would be a fun job, okay, right? But it doesn't necessarily seem like it's really a good idea for anybody. I mean, look how a neighbor can suffer from that situation, and look the damage it's going to be doing to the soil bacteria or the soil life in general, and just the plants that are trying to grow. Like if you're trying to do a relay crop or whatever, desiccants are going to destroy that. So relay crops are out of the question. Intercropping is out of the question unless they're both getting harvested at the exact same time and are susceptible to the exact same method of death. And oh no, no, that's another one. I just I'm not cool with a lot of the things that go on in modern agriculture. It's really frustrating, and it's done with the best of intentions, right? They're trying to increase their yield. They're trying to make it in time. They're trying to harvest that crop before something happens. I understand all that. And the fear is bred into, especially multi generational farmers. I understand that. But the expense versus the actual functionality, I draw into question. And, the long term dangers and unforeseen consequences. Just, yeah, I tell you, I will not be doing anything like that. I will be encouraging neighboring farmers to not do anything like that. And those that give me sass, I'll be like, okay, well, I tell you what, at the end of the year, we'll compare. We'll just compare percentages because I don't want to know your business, but we'll compare the percentage of what you put into your land versus the percentage of what your land gave you for this year's total, and we'll see who just did better with percentages. Maybe I'll want to go your way, but maybe you should consider what I've got to say too, right? Yeah. It was all I could do to hold my cool. Yeah, right, right. I hear you, man. I hear you. So, this conversation seems to have wandered well and truly off the Jonathan Lundgren topic, but mostly I just kind of want to get you guys out there and checking his stuff out and watching the videos and thinking about maybe how science is not being used correctly or in our best interest, which is something I will absolutely be demonstrating with that vegetarians are killing the planet. Because, like I say, it's all going to be scientifically backed crap that I'm throwing out there in my most outraged kind of fashion. But I still can't decide that either, right? Friendly cattle farmer just trying to do a public service announcement to let other cattle ranchers know that this is going on. I think y'all should be aware of it. Or outraged, sort of, I can't believe you would do this meatitarian perspective. I don't know. I have to practice a few one-liners on a few unsuspecting people and see what gets better laughs, I guess. Um, I watched those that you recommended and loved his logic. Well, thank you, Mio. I appreciate the fact that you clicked through on that and checked out the ones that I'd selected. Um, the one where he's out in the field, I love it. It's just a childlike fascination and joy with insects, and I think a lot more adults need to embrace that inner child and need to be prepared to let that sucker run free, and it's really, well, to me it was really heartwarming to see somebody who's been put through the academic grinder that can still smile at the end of the day. Um, Especially, for some of the things that he's been through too. A lot of these speakers that you'll find I'm sharing with you have been kind of put through the ringer and put through their paces and given a lot of grief for their perspective. And they are still struggling through and standing firm. And that is part of why I'm selecting them. So there's that. But then, yeah, the other video that I selected there, all about how science is not necessarily being used to promote change in agriculture, but it is in fact being used to stifle change in agriculture. And the straight up formula for how science is being used to dupe us all is ridiculous. And I can't help but think of things like Cowspiracy, which I still haven't watched yet because I've met a few bovine over the years, and I find it hard to believe that any of them are smart enough to get involved in any kind of conspiracy. And the average rancher that I know doesn't like people one way or the other, so probably ain't going to get too involved in getting together to screw over other people. They're just trying to make some money. They're trying to make a living, enjoying a lifestyle that suits them. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I say if you're happy, living the lifestyle that makes you happy, and it ain't hurting nobody else, then freaking great. Go with it, man. Be happy. But yeah, if your happiness involves making other people unhappy, I think you need to reassess your situation. Um, the farmer by me is a government official, so not good to start something. You can't necessarily just slap that sticker on him. It's not fair. I don't know this dude, but I do know that some of the speakers that I'm sharing started off as government officials. And Jonathan Lundgren has got his career start working for the USDA. He was doing it all right. He had millions of dollars in grant money, and he had hundreds of papers that he had written his first book by the time he was 30. And like, he got some sort of commendation from President Obama, and like, he was doing it all right. That was definitely government. And now he's one of us, absolutely one of us, because he realized you can't change that system from within. And how is it? He puts it in that second video. It's a grassroots revolution or something like that, which means it can't come from the government and it can't come from the university. While these two institutions have their part that they can play, for it to be effective, it kind of has to come from us. It has to start with people like you and I that are getting out there on our land. Mio, you're with me, and we're dreaming of our land still. Eric, you've got your land. You're working on it. You're working towards those goals. You're creating the opportunity to be a demonstration of how these other principles do work. And again, with the playlist that I'm trying to put together here, there are a lot of people who work for the government, work for governmental organizations, have previously worked for the government, that have been through all of that. And they too are making a change and making an example. And I think, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this has been a really slow moving snowball for a lot of years, but it kind of feels like now it's starting to really pick up with, things like this live stream chats. That you couldn't do this 10 years ago. I mean, you could, but it was a lot more complicated, a lot less functional. And it was really something that only the business class could do because of just what it took and the amount of money to have a computer capable of this. And, now I'm doing it on a $50, if even $50 webcam on a laptop I bought for $400 because I needed something that I could beat up and abuse while I was climbing towers in -40 and doing internet installations. Can't do that with a desktop, so I got this. And it was outmoded, it was outdated, old technology, and yet it is still capable of so much more than the computers even a decade ago. And I know I am a nerd, okay? I have had computers in my life since the VIC-20 was the king of the personal home computer. One of the first things I learned to do independently, like outside of my parents teaching me this with church, my school teaching me this with academics, I taught myself basic programming on my Commodore 64 once it upgraded to that point. Like, inside this toque, inside this would-be farmer, beats the heart of a four-square Trekkian nerd. It is what it is. This dude is, oh, I noticed you had to use punctuation for that. Okay, well, that says a lot without saying a lot, doesn't it? That's unfortunate. which means you're going to be dealing with a lot of stuff. So is he like one of those up and in your face and, whoa, you're organic farming, you're ruining the land. You're screwing us all by doing that. If you just tote the company line like the rest of us, you could get more bushels if you just add this product or that product, or, government regulation says that you need to be doing this. My stepdad, and now I want to make this absolutely plain. I have much respect for this man. He raised me. He took on my mother and her two children, and he was already done. His boys had grown up, and he started all over again, which has got to be really frustrating. I get that. Much respect, much love for my stepdad. That said, if there is anyone who could ever have demonstrated to me the frustration of dealing with governmental red tape, it is my stepfather. OMFG. I think he's a big part of the reason, too, that I am so inclined towards agricultural rebellion. And it is because I went to all of those farms and I saw all those things. I mean, the same things that make me immune to those twitching carcass videos. I look at that and go, 13 slice. I want that steak. That one there. Yes. Barbecue. The things that I had in my life as a child that make me okay with that are the same things that make me go, okay, well, he's doing it the way his daddy did it, and his daddy did it, and his daddy did it. And, at some point, basically after World War II, there was a change. People went from doing it the way their daddy did it, which was essentially, pretty heavy till, but, it wasn't a lot of synthetics going into things, not as many fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and disicide and gardenicide and farmicide, intentional farmicide going on. But at some point, there was that switch, and they decided to try all of this new stuff, which undoubtedly came with the boys who came home from the war with all of their big equipment that they're used to, and all of the chemicals and these major chemical companies. And, like that big evil corporation got its start somewhere. And as far as I've been able to trace things back, it kind of seems like it's military industrial complex chemicals, but I could be wrong, and please don't take that to the bank. And if anybody can tell me one way or another how that particular evil corporation got its start, I would love to have that bit of conversation going. But yeah, let's see. He got in my face saying I was mudding up the lane and tearing up. I didn't have a four-wheel drive. It was his son-in-law. Oh, yippers, blind to the things done by their own that are causing problems, and yet completely aware of everything that you could possibly do that could ever be considered to be a problem, and then blow those way out of proportion. I have some experience with that too. The thing with the fertilizers and chemicals is they can't make money off organic methods. Well, I'm going to challenge that. I think they can. I think if you take 10% of the income of any given company, and basically any company that hopes to be successful will take 10% of its revenue and reinvest that into research and development. Now, if the evil corporation were to take 10% of its retardedly huge income and invest it in things that the regenerative movement are trying, I think they could probably find a way to do very nicely by the planet and by their pocketbooks. But they know what they know. So, as one of these lecturers put it, it's really hard to change a man's mind about something when his income depends on it. And that is exactly the case with these companies, because there are so many things that we could be doing. We could be spraying things out on our fields that will help build soil biology. Why don't they research that? We could be spraying things out on our field that help encourage stronger, healthier roots. Not necessarily fertilizers, okay, but maybe some sort of worm tea, or who knows. I am not blessed with a multi-billion-dollar corporation with which I can say, hey, take 10% and go learn everything. But they are. And if they really, really wanted to, and they really, really listened, I'm quite sure they could make even more money than they are now. Because if you think about how many people hate this particular company and will never spend money on anything that comes from that company, and how big that company is now that it has bought certain other pharmaceutical companies, if they had a friendly face and all these people now loved them for being more environmentally friendly, they'd be raking it in hands over fist. Wouldn't even be a problem. And they wouldn't even have to convert the old farmers, because the old farmers are used to buying jugs from these guys as it is. So now it's just a different jug that will get less of them hippies and millennials up in your face. Spray this instead. Trust me, you'll like the results. The average farmer, almost all of his decisions are based on information from salesmen. So he's going to say, yeah, I'll do it. This is going to give me a better crop. I'll do it. One more bushel per year, and it's not even going to cost me. It's actually going to be a little bit less. I need to spray it twice, though, because it's natural. Oh, so it's going to cost me more overall, but less each time. Okay, sure, I get an extra bushel, which isn't even a whole lot, really. Like, geez, man. Some of the prices that I'm hearing for this stuff, it's not worth it to be a small grain farmer. Why do these guys even bother? I don't get it. And then you factor in, that's the sale price for grain. And apparently a bushel is different for every different type of grain. No, we can't have some sort of unified weights and measures. We've got to have a bushel of this is different from bushel of canola is a different weight than a bushel of corn is a different weight than a bushel of beans. Compost teas. Yeah, exactly. Okay. 10% of the investment could actually make them money with, yeah, huge. His friend in Quebec is doing just that with compost tea. Jean Fortier. That name seems really familiar. Is that Curtis Stone's friend in Quebec? Is that why I recognize that name? Curtis Stone, that's one that drives me nuts too. Oh, if I had known what he was doing 45 minutes from where I used to live, would have gone up there and visited with him. You bet your butt I would have. But I moved out to Manitoba and I discovered this great YouTuber doing amazing things with urban farming. That was right where I used to live. I love my life, I tell you. Sam, well, it's 1 a.m. here, so I suppose I should go to bed. Well, yeah, you should, man. 1 a.m. I got to get up in 4 hours after that. So thank you so much for hanging out and being part of the conversation. I really appreciate that you guys came by. Actually, it's 7 o'clock. I need to get started on dinner. A little woman's going to be home from dance class soon. So I lost track of time. But yeah, so I should probably wrap this up pretty soon here. Sam's got a point. Much love, though, and thanks for joining us. Neil, good night. Eric, I'm a big fan of open pollinated corn and saving only the best seeds. That's how we've done it for hundreds upon thousands of years, essentially since the beginning of agriculture. And that is ultimately, controversial statement, kind of the beginning of GMO, but not really, right? Because, what we know as GMO is, genetic splicing in like hardcore science. But really, we were taking organisms based on the genetic profiles that they displayed and selecting them for desirable traits. And then from those, taking the ones that we desired the traits, and so on and so on and so on and so on. And that is how we created our agricultural crops in the first place, right? But that is genetic manipulation. That is mucking about with their natural evolution. So to some degree, that's genetic modification. And that's just another example of science can prove anything you want it to prove. And science is just a tool, okay? Just a tool. I grew huge ears from doing that. Yeah, with saving your own open pollinated seed. I'm fascinated by that. And again, one of the lecturers that I've got to share, um, his corn, it's 1850 something, blood something or other, dent corn. It is a long established heirloom corn. And now, while this particular farmer does still use some inputs in his land, he got over 300 bushel acre, and didn't put a whole lot of inputs in his land. He was really, I think his main thing is kind of how to deal with the residual buildup from confinement farming, which obviously gets to my heart personally because I'm stuck in that industry now. But I'm looking for my way out, right? So who knows, a vegetarian video, maybe that'll be my viral escape. After 4 years of doing it, I think I sent you pics. You might have. To be honest, I have been sent so many pictures and links and all of this stuff. It's kind of blended at this point, so I can't really go, oh yes, I remember exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I could bullshit you and tell you that I do, but I don't think that's cool. I don't like it when people do that. Like, if you don't remember, just own it. There's a lot of shit I don't remember. It happens, man. It happens. I like to describe my brain as a computer, but it's all processor, no hard drive. Okay, give me the information. I can come up with the answer. Ask me to remember it next week. Yeah, right. That's gonna happen. Which is why when I'm going through like reading books or whatever, and I want to learn from a textbook, I'll read it many, many times. I'll listen to a lecture many, many times. I will rip an idea to shreds before I go, I think I have some idea of how this works, because I know I'm a forgetful bastard. So that is what it is. Please don't ever take it personally if, something gets dropped from my failure to hard drive. It's never meant that way. It's just, yeah, failure to hard drive. Send them to me on Facebook. Yeah, well, you're under the JT Bear fan page there, right? I think so. That would be great. Oh yeah, there's a JT Bear Facebook fan page that I never promote because I never promote any of that side social media stuff because I'm never really on it. But I am trying more frequently to post on the JT Bear fan page. Generally, it is sharing memes that I feel are inspirational to me at the moment, or maybe I feel that somebody out there could use. And sometimes they're just random funny stuff. So, like that one on Facebook, if you're cold, they're cold. Bring them in. And it's the picture of the deer and the duck and the rabbit. And then it's the venison and the beautiful duck. And yes, the rabbit. So, yeah. Do send it to me on Facebook. I won't be able to get to it tonight, I don't think, because I gotta make dinner and then I got an early day tomorrow. But I'm hoping to do some serious hacking away on my desktop tomorrow. That would be good. I'm new to this channel, so what's this channel about? Oh my goodness. Well, in a nutshell, from a nutcase, really, this channel is kind of exploring homesteading, farming, permaculture, and how maybe if we look at things a little bit differently, we can do it a little bit better. And lately, with this particular playlist, I am exploring a series of lecturers who have gone to great lengths to bring us information on how we can be farming and ranching in a more environmentally sustainable and friendly way that can help make our pastures and croplands more resilient during droughts and more absorbent during flood periods, as well as increasing the diversity and bringing back our pollinators and a lot of things. Renewable agriculture, I guess, in a nutshell, is kind of where the channel's gone to now. And between that, there's a lot of chicken videos. I like my chickens. They're cute. They're annoying, but they're cute. I don't know, guys. What else do I do on this channel? It's mostly, yeah, the permaculture and trying to learn about farming and homesteading and stuff. If you're interested in gardening, there's the JT Bear channel. And if you're interested in, seeing what this idiot gets up to with projectiles, there's the JT's Barefoot Outdoor Adventures. And then there's Bear in the Kitchen if you want to see what I do with food. Not always good, but always entertaining. Aquaponics on the JT Bear channel. Yeah. And I am so glad to be back into that down in the basement too. Especially now that I'm kind of learning the limitations of that particular environment. Last year, trying to do the peppers down there was heartbreaking. I brought in so many plants and I was so hopeful because I've seen such beautiful results with aquaponics in the past, but I was in a desert in a greenhouse in aquaponics in the past, you know? So yeah, out here in my basement, that's an herb garden this year. Maybe some lettuce. We got some winter tomatoes, so I might go there. We'll see. Am I going to try meat again? I am trying meat darn near every few days. I've still got rather a lot left from that last batch that I did, but I have been discussing with Shocks, I really need to get some bottles and bottle up the rest of this. I suppose actually I should do an update video on that because it has cleared out so nicely. Like I haven't run it through a filter or anything. That stuff with the strawberries is still sitting in the little half keg, and the original batch of meat is still sitting in the meat monster that I made there. But it is so nice, and it's potent. Definitely the most potent batch that I have made. You won't see half-naked women on this channel. No, you won't. But if you stick around long enough, you might see me in a red sequin dress. And or if you go through old videos, you can find that too. People keep asking for that thing. One of these days, I'm going to show up in that dress. Maybe I'll dig it out for the vegetarians are killing the planet rant, just because it'll upset somebody. But at the same time, they can relate to me because I'm a man in a dress, so I must know what their position is. Generation X, excuse me. Delete that last one from there. I saw bottles for just that at the bottle depot where we bring our recyclables. For mead? I've seen a couple of like bottled, proper licensed type meads at it's neither of our local liquor stores. It's in Minnedosa, but their liquor commission's a little better stocked than our small towns, and yeah, they've got a couple of meads there. I was tempted to buy one just so I can kind of like do a comparison of what I'm making versus what comes off a shelf. But in the end, I didn't, again, because I'm cheap. And also, I really like what I'm making, so I really don't care what the stuff off the shelf tastes like. I'm sure it's wonderful, and it must be pretty reasonable, or else how could it be successfully marketed, right? And if it's on the shelves, it's being successfully marketed. But I can make 4.5 gallons of mead for like $50. Why am I going to go out and buy it? I appreciate that other people just don't want to take that effort, though. That's fine. I don't see it as a lot of effort. You get a bunch of water, you put some honey in it, you put some yeast in it, you put an airlock on it, you wait a while. Basically, when it stops bubbling, you're good to go. And yet, as I've learned with this last batch, even with the end of the fermentation process, there is still a lot of subtle stuff that seems to be going on in that mead, because it's about 6 months old now, and the flavor is completely different than when I first put the strawberries in there. And the strawberry flavor is so much more subtle. It's almost become more of the aroma than the flavor. It's just, this conversation is making my tea seem a little disappointing. I may have to go tap off some mead when I go downstairs to make dinner. I find the kombucha I make, mine is so much more flavorful, and theirs tastes watered down. Yeah. Well, that's anything. You're going to be mass producing. They're going to be mass producing. It's not going to be as pure, because they've got to stretch it out over more people to try and make that money back, because they've got a lot of costs that when we do things for ourselves, we don't incur, right? Like shipping. bottling, long-term storage. Like we've got jars and things that we can reuse, but they've got to consider everything that they package as kind of a one-time use and pray to blank whoever that maybe it gets appropriately recycled. So yeah, they got to really stretch it to make that work. But I have never actually tried kombucha. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that, but it's something that Shocks has brought up a few times. And it's a fermented beverage as well, right? I think she was saying it's like green tea, and I don't even know. It's not that I don't pay attention, it's that I'm very distracted. ADD, a little bit. Just what? Yeah, and we're always going on about things. We're both always very distracted. Seen a lot of videos, but never had it yet. Fermented ordinary tea. Oh, not green tea. Well, okay, green tea, white tea, black tea, it's all the same leaf. It's just dried differently, really. So interesting. I've never tried it, but yeah, one of these days, I'll get around to it. And like I say, Shocks is into it. So we're probably throwing an S on that, bear in the kitchen. It's going to be bears in the kitchen. And again, we can explore just so many things like that, because that's part of what that channel is about. Is, well, I don't know about this, so kind of what the food, and check it out, learn a little bit. Who knows? See where the world goes, right? But I have been babbling for a little while now since I said I was going to wrap this up. I think I'm just enjoying the fact that we got some actual chat going on in the conversation. It was looking rough in the beginning of this, but I really do need to get going and start making on some dinner. Eric, never had meat, but your uncle loves it. Well, then your uncle can hook you up with some. And I don't know. I would say give it a try. It's kind of like wine, but not. I'm not a huge wine guy, but I really enjoy my meat. So yeah, people say it's just a honey wine, though. But I mean, whatever. It's ancestrally appropriate to go with roasting pork, according to the movies I watch anyway. You need a sample of the mass-produced stuff for the bacteria you need, but it's cheaper than buying the powder. See, that's cool. I like that. That's what I was doing with the yogurt too, right? Was just getting some yogurt from the store when it went on sale. I'd say cheap yogurt, but we got good yogurt from the store when it was on sale for a good value. Big difference. And then we just use that for our culture as compared to going out and buying the powders and stuff. And yeah, maybe you can't use it as many times as you could use a powder, but at the same time, I was able to reuse it quite a few times. And the only reason I'm not making yogurt right now is because my jar is broke. So that was poor management on my part, again, with the mismanagement causing problems. But yeah, if it's that simple, I guess I'll have to give it a go. Is this something I'm going to want to brew in a 5-gallon batch, or is this something I'm going to want to brew like in the little 1-gallon carboy that I initially got for starting my mead? I'll do some research. I'll look into it, and yeah. Then once I've done something with it, I'll put that up on the Bear in the Kitchen channel, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But do a 1-gallon jar. Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I've got the 1-gallon carboy when I first got started with the mead making, and it worked. Punky, well, hello, much love. Nice to see you. You're getting here just as I'm wrapping it up, though. So, yeah, would have been fun to have you in the chat, though. Always fun chatting back and forth with you. God, how many years have we been chatting back and forth anyway? I was trying to figure that out the other day. Because I think you must have been in the first 100, or at least the first couple hundred on my channel. Yeah, because I started in like 12. So if you would have joined me in about 13, that's like 6 years. Yeah, we've been chatting forever. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I've picked up a lot out of chats with you, so it's been a lot of fun. So I'm glad we can still stay communicating. That said, I feel due respect, I should give you warning that I am making a spoof video. Please don't take it seriously. But sometime in the future, I am going to be putting out a video on how vegetarians are killing the planet. because vegetarian farming is not necessarily friendly. And I don't know. It struck me as funny. I'm going to run with it. I hope that you can watch it and enjoy it as funny. That said, maybe I'll actually run it by you first. Not necessarily for permission, but if there's anything that you feel I've gone too damn far with, maybe I should pull that out. No, it's not about mocking vegetarians. That's I think one of the most important things. It's actually about agricultural practices and how they can be misconstrued. And that kind of actually relates to tonight's gentleman, Jonathan Lundgren, because in one of the lectures that I linked on last Thursday's video, he goes off into how science is being manipulated to create a false impression of what's going on in the agricultural situation, to see to it that certain interests are protected and those who might maybe want to change the way things are done are seen and treated with ridicule. But anytime you try and change anything in a paradigm situation, you're going to be facing certain amounts of ridicule. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to give you warning in person as we can get anyway, that I was going to be doing that. And no offense. I got much love for you. Seriously, I've enjoyed our chats over the years, and I don't want to do anything to endanger that. But I do want to prove the point that science can be taken wildly out of context to prove almost anything. So, yeah, that's all there. I hope so. Eric and I are shooting for viral videos so I can get away from the industrial hog barn that I'm in. But we'll see. Anyway, yeah, I've got to wrap it up. I'm almost delirious with pasties at this point, and I've definitely talked myself out. So thank you all for joining me, and joining me at the end and joining me in the beginning. And if you haven't checked out the videos for Jonathan, please go back to that last one. Check out one of the two that I linked at the end, and we can get into future conversations about it. There's always the comments on this particular video if you want to come back and chat about it, or there's the comments on that video. So tomorrow, I am pretty sure I know what direction we're going to take, and that direction is down, 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 deep into the soil, and what lies beneath, and what makes the difference between dirt and soil, and a wonderful woman who can explain that to y'all. So that's going to be fun. Come back tomorrow, check that out. Don't forget to do your homework on it. Much love, everybody, and yeah, thanks for joining me. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you later. All right. So much fun having these chats. I love it.